Yeah, do either one of you have any facts or figures on the land value of the R2 lots that are surrounding where you want to put these 22 twin homes? Is it going to increase, decrease, or stay the same? Or do you have an answer to that? That's part one. And then part two is, do you have any information as to people coming in and out and degrading the property as can happen with rental units?
Let me address your first question first. When we had this proposed as an R2 development and then got 4 bids for installing the infrastructure, it left no margin to allow the project to go forward. And so we began the process again. In addition, we scaled back the size of the project. And so I can't give you precise numbers, but I would estimate that it probably increases the value of the land, I don't know, perhaps 30%, that allows enough of a margin that this proposal is most likely to be economically feasible, where if this were back to R2, we might as well fence it and put cattle in there. To address, go ahead.
I was more asking about the other lots of people that already owned homes that might abut to this or look over.
I understand. I misunderstood your first question. Let me address it correctly. The way that this particular group of lots will lay out, on the north side, if you look up there, there's only one single structure that actually abuts clear back to the adjacent lots. The neighborhood business has a buffer zone both by parkland and by the detention basin. So there's some degree of separation there. Our goal is not to degrade the value of anyone's lot. Our goal is not to build tiny little lots with tiny little houses that are aesthetically unpleasing. Our goal is to make structures that look as close as we can to a single-family home, but at the same time to serve a market in that $180,000 to $210,000 approximate buy-in range, where there's actually quite a significant pool of buyers. Where if these were R2 lots, I'd have to be hitting that $300,000 or so mark to make it pencil. So what we're trying to do is lay out something that serves the market, but at the same time is feasible at the intersection of an arterial and a collector street. R2 simply won't work with traffic of that nature. If you look at the south side, the 3 structures that are furthest to the west are buffered by a detention basin. And then as you go upslope, the remaining 5 structures there have some degree of buffering and separation vertically. Some of those, in fact, I would say that the slab of the house that's upslope would be at least 60 to 70% of the way, perhaps more, above the structure below it. So we've tried to design it in such a way with the constraints of the site so that we have as much buffer as we can, but at the same time are trying to allow for the requirements to build the infrastructure.
Thank you.
Scott, you had a photo earlier in your presentation of the style of house, twin house that you're looking at. And if you want to bring that up, Mike, now that's what you're looking at, Bill?
This
that's
is
what you guys,
example.
something similar to this?
Something similar to this, obviously not identical. But
Okay, no, but that's what, something of that nature is what you're looking at putting on these
Correct.
lots, so people can see what it looks like. Okay, other questions before we get into testimony from the public, folks? Okay, thank you very much. We may come back with you some other questions, and at this time I would entertain anybody that is in favor of this public hearing. Please step forward, state your name, address, and then we'll give you 3 minutes to chat about what's on your mind. Seeing nobody rush to the podium, I will take testimony in opposition to this. Anybody would like to state their name, please come up. Let us know what's on your mind. We'll give you 3 minutes.
I'm Ed Townsend, and I live at 231 South Mountain View Road, straight across the street from this commercial strip mall they want to put in. If you look around town, you see several strip malls, and they're all about 3/4 empty. I'm not sure that they would make any money on that. We purchased our home several years ago there. One of the reasons we purchased our home was because we knew that was R2 across the street. That would help increase the value of our home maybe, but it would be a nice with everything else up there, the 80 or 100 acres that's R2. Planning and zoning, we were at that meeting, and they denied this approval because they felt that it should all stay R2. I would agree with them. The original plat showed it R2, and to bail the developer out because he made a mistake in buying it or something, I don't think that's the city's problem. Neighborhood business can include everything or anything. We've been in business a couple different places in town, and I've sold real estate in Moscow. You're not going to put a business in there that you're going to be able to make it on selling ice cream cones or convenience store stuff unless you have beer and wine. If you don't have a restaurant with beer and wine, you're not going to make it. So that's probably out if anything ever went in there. It's 2 miles or less to Safeway, to that mall. I don't think there's any reason to have a convenience store in that location. And for our home value to stay and to increase, I think that you need to leave it in as the planning and zoning did and make it all R2. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Others who would like to testify, please come up. And just as a reminder, state your name and where you reside, please.
I'm Corey Bowney. I reside at 2075 Damon Street. And I guess in general, I'm neutral on the comp plan and zone change for this parcel. I believe that the lower class housing is needed in Moscow. I have a couple employees that have looked to locate here in that price range that Phil talked about. Is tough for them to find a home in. So I'm not particularly object to those. I do think you guys are considering parking, and I think that needs to be a big consideration. You have parking, you have one garage stall and one driveway stall. I have an employee that bought a house similar to this over on Polk. Just general nature. He's husband and wife and 2 kids. With the amount of stuff they have, they don't park in the garage. They need that for storage. They typically don't have a lot of storage in these homes. So I think that has to be a consideration. They're a 2-car family. So they have one in the driveway and one on the street. If you know Polk, the 6 that are along the west side or the east side of Polk and 6 that are on the west side of Polk, they both have parking at least on one side. If you drive by there, there's always cars on there. If you go to Google Earth, half of them have a car parked out in front whenever those videos are taken. You have other examples like Brighton Lane and Alturas that have these type of homes, and they have parking on both sides. Again, you drive down those streets, you weave in and out of the cars parked on the road. So I think just anecdotally that people need to park on the streets with these type of developments. So the fact that there's no parking on the street concerns me. I think if you go to the Polk ones, about half the twin homes there have the landscaped area to the right or left of the parking area graveled and cars parked there. So they're parked 2 or 3 along the front, which I don't think makes a great look. Also, the employee that lives on Polk says people regularly get ticket for parking over the sidewalk, which isn't allowed in front of their place. Also, people park on the other side. Part of Polk's just tree line, but it is no parking. Just overflow forces people to park there in the nights and evenings. They think they aren't going to get a ticket, but they do. So people will make parking if there isn't parking allowed. So I think if the twin homes are allowed, then either street parking or some other option needs to be available. If it's a commercial lot, if I would locate my business there, I would have problems with people taking my parking spots. So maybe additional parking, maybe eliminating a townhome or a twin home or two for some additional parking, I think is needed in that area. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rory Fletcher, and I live at 1944 Crestview Drive. And I am on the south side of that development. I don't know how to work this thing, but my lot is the one that has 5. I will have 5 new backdoor neighbors, which I think is part of the concern for the Zoning and Planning Commission, is that it's kind of spot zoning and it's drastically changing what we all. I bought my house not that long ago, knew it was R2, had no problem with, similar houses, my style coming in. I'm very concerned about the value of my home if I all of a sudden have 5 next door neighbors. There'll be 2.5 structures, but 5 independent owners. And so I'm concerned too with the street parking, but also just the turning it into a whole new zone. That's not what we did, and I'm very concerned about the value of my home in that neighborhood. So, thank you.
Question for Mr. Fletcher.
Okay.
Mr. Fletcher, in the neighborhood meeting minutes, you're stated as saying that access needed to be designed to the 2 existing storm drains behind your property, and I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah, there's 2 manhole covers just on the outside of my property on the south side, and there's nothing in it in the drawings. And at the last meeting, he mentioned that it would be accessed through my property, and I called the city, and he said that that's not the case. That there's no access from Crestview to that. So I don't.
Okay,
that
so
was just a concern of mine.
You're satisfied?
Yeah, I'm satisfied that it won't come through my property.
Okay,
Yes.
all right,
Yes,
thank you.
I am.
Is there others that would like to come up? And this is for opposition. I will ask for general testimony. I got anybody that would like to have just general comments on this? They're welcome to come up and address us. Okay, the concerns that we've had, what I will do is I'll ask the applicant and Scott that represents the applicant to come up, and if they have any of the concerns that these folks had, if they want to share what their thoughts on those are, they're welcome to do that at this time.
I understand that there's concerns about where people will park. There's several different alternatives, and on balance, given all the variables, we prefer not to see on-street parking for a number of reasons. We don't believe it's safer. We think it's more problematic. It also sets the homes back further on the lots, which creates some grading issues, and it also sets the houses that much closer to the adjacent lots. Concerning the reduction in value of people's property, I've seen a number of instances where properties with a good walk score, in other words, a good proximity to services where people can either walk or bicycle to services in the city, actually improves property value. I'm not suggesting that I'm not predicting that putting something there is going to add to the tax assessor's revenues for property values. I frankly don't think that it is a practical place to put R2, and I don't think that it's a radical change in the community nor a degradation in values.